Yeah, so let me just explain how we get tempted, okay? The mechanism of temptation, right? So we all have lust inside of us, okay? We have desires inside of us. Now, if those desires meet an appropriate enticement, okay, that is when you get tempted. Let's read James chapter 1 verse 14. Okay, James 1 verse 14. We all have desires inside of us. When those desires meet an appropriate enticement, okay, that is when we get tempted. And I'll explain that to you shortly. Okay. James 1:14. Alright, I read. But each one is tempted when he is drawn away by his own desires and enticed. Okay, so this is New King James Version. Each of us is tempted when we are drawn away by our own desires and enticed. Okay, so we all have like desires inside of us. Okay, if that desire, okay, meets an appropriate enticement, so the enticement is something that is outside. Okay, so for you to be tempted, the desires inside of you, okay, it has to meet an appropriate enticement. Like the thing has to be appealing, right? So that thing is outside. Okay, so for instance, okay, if let's say everyone has a desire. Okay, so let's say there is a naked mad woman outside. For me, I don't think I would be sexually attracted to the naked mad woman. Okay, but if let's say there is a beautiful lady, okay, she's not mad, outside, and let's say a part of her body is exposed, okay, I would be sexually attracted to that lady. Now, what's the difference between the two? Okay, one is a naked woman who is mad, and then the other person is a naked woman who is not mad, right? The naked woman that is mad, that wasn't my right enticement. So there is no way I would get tempted. There is no way I would get tempted. No way. Okay, but the other woman that is beautiful and she is mentally sound, you realize that I get attracted to her, right? So that was a right enticement. Now, if the desires inside of you meet those appropriate enticements, okay, that is when you get tempted. So that's what the verse is, James 1 verse 40. Now let's look at the effect of the temptation. Now in verse 15 it says that then when desires has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Okay, so now once you get tempted, you sin. Okay, then when you sin, it brings forth what? Death. Now, I mean, we all, once in a while, or it depends on who you are, but sometimes you get tempted. All right. Now the Bible says that once you are tempted, you sin, and then you die. Okay, you bring forth what? Death. Now that death over there is not like a physical death. Okay, that is like a spiritual death. That is you separating yourself from God. So now anytime you sin, you separate yourself from God. Now let's read in Romans 3:23. Okay, it says that for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. Okay, so anytime you sin, so from that verse we can understand that anytime you sin, you cut short of a certain dimension of God's glory you could be walking in. Okay, so that's what temptation does. So temptation leads you to sin, then it brings forth death. Now that death is a separation. Okay, it's a separation from a certain dimension of God's glory that you could be operating in. This is what happens when you sin, and this is like a mechanism of temptation, how you get tempted. Okay, you have the desires inside of you. Now those desires have to meet an appropriate enticement outside. If they meet an appropriate enticement, that is when you get tempted. Now let's look at those who overcome temptations. James chapter 1 verse 12. Blessed is the man who endureth temptation, for when he has been approved, he will receive the crown of life which the Lord promised to those who love him. Okay, when you overcome temptation, right, you don't allow the temptation to overcome you. You receive the crown of life. Do you want to receive life, or you want to receive death? Now, when you are tempted and the temptation overcomes you, you receive death. You separate yourself from a certain dimension of God's glory you could be walking in, right? But if you are able to overcome the temptation, you receive the crown of life. That is what God gives you. Now, and it says that what? Blessed are you. You are blessed when you receive that.